Are you overwhelmed again, Mother?
I am not your mother.
Are you overwhelmed?
I want to go home.
Silly Mother, you are home.
Have you ever wondered if your reality is something that you take for granted? Perhaps you're the type of person who unquestioningly strolls through life each day, never wondering what any of it means, never considering the bigger questions. Perhaps, though, you're a bit more inquisitive than that. Perhaps at one point or another, you've taken the time to look up at the stars, breathe in the ridiculous fact that you are a mass of sentient flesh hurtling through an endless black void on a huge sphere surrounded by other huge spheres, and just think to yourself, man, this is fucking crazy. How is any of this happening? Why is any of this happening? If so, you're obviously not alone. Humanity has asked these kind of questions for as long as it's been around, but has found next to nothing in terms of answers. Some of us humans are content with our situation here on Earth, and some of us aren't. Some people wish they could change their situation, that they could leave their life here behind, abandon the world they've come to trust as real, and live out a different life in a different world. Well, to those people I have a message.
You should be careful what you wish for.
There's a certain genre of horror that I've been noticing pop up more and more lately. Stories in which ordinary people living ordinary lives suddenly find themselves thrust into a new, hellish situation and are forced to adapt lest they die or go insane. There are many examples of these kinds of stories that you may have already heard of. There's Vivarium, a film about a house-hunting couple that take a wrong turn and suddenly find themselves trapped in an endless suburb, forced to raise a freakish child and spend each dreadful day wondering if they'll ever be able to return to their normal lives. There's From, a TV show about an inescapable town full of all kinds of people that have one thing in common. They are all terrifyingly unlucky. None of them know how to leave, all the roads in the town lead back to the town, and worst of all, humanoid monsters come out at night that brutally murder anyone they see. For the people of this town, this is their life now, and there's nothing they can do about it. The most recent example from this genre that I've seen is an animation from the YouTube channel Glitch called The Amazing Digital Circus. An animation about people who put on some kind of headset and are transported into a seemingly inescapable digital world run by a man with a mouth for a head, spending each day going on his adventures just to keep their minds off the fact that they are trapped. It's made clear that if they spent their time looking for an exit instead, they would lose their minds as they aimlessly chased after that unattainable goal. So there they are, in their new world, with their new lives that none of them asked for, mourning their old homes, never to see their loved ones again, as they succumb to fate and accept their new, dreadful circumstances. It is the only thing that they can do. These stories all share certain key elements that set them apart from other types of horror/psychological thriller stories. My reason for making this video is to lay out these elements and give a name to this intriguing genre. I brainstormed roughly 20 different names, but the one I settled on I feel sums up the dreadful feeling these stories evoke from their audience. I call this genre Sudden Hell. The 6 elements of a sudden hell story are these. Number 1. The characters in the story are abruptly and unexpectedly thrust into a new situation or world. Number 2. This new situation or world is different from the character's status quo in significant ways. Number 3. The characters' new circumstances are typically unpleasant for one reason or another. It is common in these stories for the characters to theorize that they have died and have gone to hell. Number 4. The situation or world that the characters find themselves in is one that is difficult or impossible to change or escape. Number 5. The character's situation is typically very confusing. They often do not know what has happened to them or how they got to where they are, and there is an element of mystery to the story. And number 6. The characters are forced to adapt to their new situation, at least in part, in order to survive or prevent themselves from going insane. As Ragatha from The Amazing Digital Circus puts it,
after a while, you start to realize that you really can't leave, and constantly chasing an unattainable goal will start driving you a bit crazy. And eventually you get to asking what the point of anything is, and you completely lose sight of who you are and why you're even alive, and when you reach your breaking point, something really terrible can happen.
So as you can probably tell, this is a very existential type of horror. And yes, there are a lot of other types of stories that delve into existentialism, but I feel that sudden hell stories are unique enough to warrant their own label. The sixth key element that I mentioned is what I believe sets these stories apart from movies like Saw, Cube, and Circle. Those movies definitely have the first 5 elements, but sudden hell stories have another layer to them. The characters in Sudden Hells haven't just been kidnapped and locked in some warehouse. They've had their entire way of life stolen from them in an instant and replaced with a horrifying, seemingly permanent, inescapable hell, without even the comfort of a rational explanation as to why it's happening, why it had to be them. They are forced to either let go of the world they once knew, of everything they considered real and normal, or go insane trying to get back. The death games in Saw all have a clear exit, even if they are horrible. The characters in a Sudden Hell don't get that luxury. Part of the reason I love these stories so much is because they make me think about our own situation as humans on Earth. When you think about it, our situation really isn't that different from a Sudden Hell story. None of us asked to be born, but suddenly we were. We were thrown against our will into this mysterious place where none of us know what's going on or why we're here. The only real difference between our situation and a Sudden Hell is that we don't remember where we were before we got here, if we even were anywhere. If we did remember, perhaps we'd be losing our minds trying to get back. But this crazy world is the only one we know, so we act like it's normal. Some people turn to science or religion for answers, but most people are humble enough to admit that despite whatever beliefs they have, at their core they aren't 100% sure why or how we're here. We are ignorant creatures. I love that Sudden Hell stories make me think about this. I might be in the minority here, and correct me if I'm not, but I think existential crises are healthy for the brain. I think it's important for us to really deeply consider our reality and reconcile with the fact that we don't have all the answers, no matter how badly we want them. That isn't to say that we'll never have all the answers, but to be honest, it doesn't seem likely to me, at least not for a very long time. When the characters in Sudden Hell stories find themselves thrown into their new lives, they often freak out and go a little crazy trying to figure out what's going on, sometimes losing parts of themselves along the way. When you take a step back, though, you realize that their situation hasn't really changed that much. Sure, they're in a different place with different rules, but they're pretty much just as ignorant as they were before they got there, just like we are. The questions they ask about their new world could just as easily be asked about their old one. That's the main reason I like these stories so much. They cause their audience to reflect on their own reality, and it can be truly scary to do that. These stories are very effective, personal horror. The other reason I like this genre so much is because it just has so many potential applications. In case I haven't mentioned an example you've heard of yet, here's a couple more. If you've seen the Rick and Morty spin-off show Solar Opposites, then you probably know about the Wall subplot. This is a side story within the main show in which ordinary people going about their lives are suddenly shrunken down and put into a huge wall of pet cages in the bedroom of an alien child, for no other reason than because he just feels like putting them there. But he doesn't tell them that. The whole experience for them is a chaotic, cruel mess with no explanation.
Hey, wait, hey, I don't belong here. 2 little aliens just shrank me down for no reason. I'm just a regular guy. I didn't do anything to anybody.
There are so many people in the Wall that they've built a whole society in which they use common household items, which are giant to them, as tools and building materials. They have their own laws, their own leadership, and they refer to the regular world as the Before Four. There's also the Backrooms, an old internet story that puts forth the notion that our world works like a simulation of sorts, one that you can clip out of like sometimes happens when a video game glitches. When this happens, you fall through the world and get sent to the Backrooms, a mysterious place that has many levels to it, most of them unpleasant, and some of which contain liminal spaces and aggressive entities. This is a very, very difficult place to escape from, and most people who end up there never see anything or anyone from their old lives again. These stories are bone-chilling in their own unique way, and they are just some of the limitless stories that can be told in this genre. Anyway, I feel like I've made my case at this point for the Sudden Hell genre and the fact that it deserves to be recognized as its own thing. I hope that people continue to make stories using this formula, as I find it endlessly intriguing. If any of you viewers know of any more stories like this, please let me know in the comments, because I'm always looking for more. With that, I thank you for making it this far into the video and urge you to like and subscribe if you enjoyed watching. I really appreciate your time. See you later.